Good evening, everyone. Before I say another word, I want you to do something for me. Just for a second, stop scrolling, stop half listening while you do something else, and actually look at me. Because what I'm about to tell you tonight might be the single most important 5 minutes you spend all week. I'm not exaggerating, and I don't say that lightly. I've spent over 25 years in medicine, sitting across from patients, holding their hands, delivering both good news and news that broke my heart to give. And in all those years, there is one truth that has become impossible to ignore. There is one exercise, just one, that if you are over 60 and you start doing it consistently, can change the entire trajectory of your life. Not metaphorically, literally. It can be the difference between spending your 70s and 80s independent, mobile, and full of vitality, or spending them fragile, fearful, and dependent on others for the simplest tasks. Tonight, I'm going to tell you exactly what that exercise is, why it works, and how you can start doing it, even if you've never exercised a day in your life, even if you have bad knees, even if you think it's too late for you. It is not too late. It is never too late. Stay with me. Let me start by telling you about a patient of mine. I'll call her Margaret because that's not her real name, but her story is real, and I've seen it repeated hundreds of times in my career. Margaret came to my office when she was 63 years old. She was sharp, funny, quick-witted, the kind of woman who could make an entire waiting room laugh. But she walked into my office that day gripping her daughter's arm, terrified of falling. 6 months earlier, she'd tripped on a curb, fractured her hip, and spent 3 months in rehabilitation. She told me, with tears in her eyes, "Doctor, I used to hike mountains. Now I'm afraid of my own driveway." That sentence stayed with me, because Margaret wasn't unlucky. Margaret wasn't just getting old. Margaret had lost something specific, something measurable, something that medicine has a name for, and something that, tragically, most people over 60 are losing right now. Silently, without even realizing it, because nobody ever told them what to do about it. What Margaret had lost was muscle. Specifically, the muscle in her legs, her hips, and her core. The very muscles that keep us upright, that catch us when we stumble, that let us rise from a chair without groaning, that let us climb stairs without clutching a railing like it's a lifeline. This isn't just about looking fit or feeling strong. This is about survival. This is about independence. This is about whether you get to keep living your life on your own terms, in your own home, doing the things you love, or whether you slowly, quietly, lose that ability one small task at a time. Here's what most people don't know, and what I wish every single person over the age of 60 understood in their bones. Starting around age 30, we begin losing muscle mass. It's a slow, creeping process called sarcopenia. By the time most people reach their 60s, they've already lost a meaningful percentage of their muscle strength, and if nothing is done about it, that loss accelerates. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens the way rust happens on a car left out in the rain, invisible day to day, but devastating over years. And here's the terrifying part. This muscle loss is directly, powerfully connected to falls, to fractures, to loss of independence, to hospitalizations, and yes, even to early mortality. I have watched otherwise healthy people enter a downward spiral that started with something as small as a stumble in the kitchen. A fall leads to a fracture leads to surgery leads to bed rest leads to even more muscle loss, and that spiral, once it starts, is brutally hard to reverse. But here is the good news, and this is why I'm standing here talking to you tonight, instead of just writing another quiet chart note in an exam room. This spiral is not inevitable, it is preventable, and more than that, it is reversible, even after it's already begun. There is one movement, one exercise, so simple that you can do it in your living room, in your kitchen, next to your bed, that directly targets the exact muscles responsible for keeping you upright, mobile, and independent for the rest of your life. That exercise is the humble squat, what I often teach my patients as the sit-to-stand movement. Now, I can already sense some of you rolling your eyes. Squats? That's for bodybuilders. That's for 25-year-olds in a gym doing heavy weights. I understand the skepticism, truly, I do. But let me reframe this for you, because what I'm describing tonight is not the gym version of a squat. I am talking about a movement pattern that is, quite literally, one of the most fundamental things the human body does. Every single time you sit down in a chair and stand back up, you are performing a squat. Every time you get out of your car, off the toilet, up from the couch, out of bed, that is a squat. It is not some exotic exercise reserved for athletes. It is the foundation of human movement itself. And the tragedy is that as we age, many people unconsciously start avoiding this movement. They use their arms to push off furniture. They ease themselves down instead of controlling the descent. They let the muscles atrophy because they stop asking those muscles to do real work. And every time you avoid using those muscles, you lose a little more of them. So here is my prescription for you tonight. And yes, I am prescribing this the same way I would prescribe a medication, because I believe in it that strongly. I want you to start practicing bodyweight squats, or sit-to-stand repetitions, every single day. Not once a week, not when I remember. Every day, ideally at a consistent time, so it becomes as automatic as brushing your teeth. Let me walk you through exactly how to do this safely, because I know some of you are thinking about your knees, your hips, your balance, and I want to address every one of those concerns directly, because safety always comes first in my mind. Start with a sturdy chair, not a soft, sinking sofa, a firm, stable chair, ideally one with armrests for your first few weeks if you feel unsteady. Sit toward the front edge of the chair, feet flat on the floor, hip width apart. Lean your chest slightly forward, keep your back straight, and instead of using your arms to push yourself up, focus on driving through your heels and your thighs to stand. Rise slowly, with control, not a fast, jerky motion, but a smooth, deliberate rise, as though you're pressing the floor away from you. Once you're standing, pause, breathe, and then lower yourself back down with the same control, resisting gravity rather than collapsing into the seat. That is 1 repetition. In the beginning, 5 repetitions might feel like plenty. That is completely fine. I don't want you to compare yourself to anyone else in this room or on this screen. I want you to compare yourself only to the version of you from last week. If 5 is your starting point, 5 is a victory. Over the coming weeks, as your legs adapt, as your balance improves, as your confidence grows, you can slowly build toward 10 repetitions, then 15, then perhaps even doing this without using your arms at all. Then eventually, without a chair, doing a full squat down toward the ground and back up, if your knees and joints allow it comfortably. I want to pause here and speak directly to those of you who are thinking, "Doctor, I have arthritis in my knees. I have a hip replacement. I have back pain. Isn't this dangerous for me?" This is such an important question, and I take it seriously every single day in my practice. Here's what decades of research and clinical experience have taught us. The muscles surrounding your joints are often the very thing protecting those joints from further wear and pain. Weak thigh muscles put more stress on an arthritic knee, not less. Strengthening the muscles around a joint frequently reduces pain over time because those muscles begin absorbing forces that would otherwise be transmitted directly into the joint itself. Of course, and I want to be very clear about this, if you have a specific medical condition, a recent surgery, uncontrolled dizziness, severe osteoporosis, or any concern that feels unique to your body, please speak with your own physician before starting any new movement pattern. I am not treating you individually tonight. I am giving you general guidance that has helped thousands of patients like Margaret. Your own doctor knows your history, your medications, your specific risks, and that conversation matters. But for the vast majority of people over 60, this movement, done slowly and mindfully, is not just safe, it is one of the most protective things you can do for your joints, not a threat to them. Now let me tell you why this particular exercise, out of everything I could have chosen to talk to you about tonight, is the one I consider truly life-changing. First, it strengthens what we call the big muscle groups, your quadriceps in the front of your thighs, your hamstrings in the back, your glutes, and your core. These are the muscles responsible for nearly every functional movement you perform throughout your day: getting up from a chair, climbing stairs, getting out of a car, bending to pick something off the floor, catching yourself if you trip. When these muscles are strong, your body has the reserve capacity to handle life's unexpected demands. When they're weak, even ordinary tasks become risky, and extraordinary tasks, like catching your balance after a stumble, become nearly impossible. Second, and this is something I find genuinely remarkable, this single movement improves balance. Balance is not just about your inner ear or your vision, though those matter too. Balance is fundamentally a strength issue. When your legs are strong enough to make micro-adjustments quickly, shifting your weight, catching a wobble before it becomes a fall, your risk of falling drops dramatically. Studies following older adults who incorporate functional strength movements like this into their daily routine show significantly reduced fall rates compared to those who remain sedentary. And falls, as I mentioned with Margaret's story, are one of the leading causes of serious injury, hospitalization, and loss of independence in people over 60. This is not a small cosmetic benefit. This is potentially the difference between an independent decade and a decade spent in decline. Third, this exercise supports your bone density. Weight-bearing movement, especially movement that loads your hips and spine the way a squat does, stimulates bone-building cells throughout your body. This matters enormously for preventing or slowing osteoporosis, which affects a shocking number of people, especially women after 60. Strong bones combined with strong muscles create a kind of armor against the fractures that so often mark the beginning of someone's decline. Fourth, and this is something we're only beginning to fully appreciate in medicine, regular functional strength movement appears to support metabolic health, insulin sensitivity, and even cardiovascular health. Your muscles are not just for moving, they are metabolically active tissue, constantly influencing your blood sugar regulation, your inflammation levels, and your overall metabolic resilience. Every squat you perform is, in a very real sense, a small conversation between your muscles and your entire metabolic system, one that tends to say, "We are strong, we are resilient, we are not declining." And fifth, something I've witnessed again and again in my patients that doesn't always show up in a lab result but matters just as much: confidence. When Margaret came back to see me 3 months after we started her on a gentle, progressive sit-to-stand routine, something in her had shifted. She wasn't gripping her daughter's arm anymore. She walked into my office on her own, stood a little taller, and told me, "Doctor, I stood up from the floor yesterday without using my hands. I haven't done that in years." Her eyes were wet again, but this time it wasn't fear, it was pride. That is what this exercise gives people. Not just muscle, not just balance. It gives back a sense of ownership over your own body, your own life, your own future. I want to address something else, because I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. "Doctor, I don't have time. My schedule is full. I have grandchildren to watch, appointments to keep, a home to manage." I hear this every single day, and I want to gently push back on it, with love, because I think it's one of the most dangerous myths in modern life. This exercise, at its most basic, takes less than 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes. You spend more time than that waiting for your coffee to brew, scrolling through messages, or watching commercials during your favorite show. I am not asking you to join a gym, buy expensive equipment, or carve out an hour of your day. I am asking you to stand up and sit down, slowly and with intention, 10 to 15 times, once or twice a day. That is the entire commitment. And I promise you, the return on that tiny investment of time is unlike almost anything else you could do for your long-term health. I also want to speak to those of you who feel like it's simply too late. Maybe you're 70, maybe you're 75. Maybe you haven't exercised intentionally in decades, and the idea of starting now feels almost embarrassing or pointless, like trying to plant a tree the day before winter. I want you to hear me very clearly on this point, because it matters more than almost anything else I'll say tonight. It is never too late to build strength. The human body, at any age, retains what we call plasticity, the ability to adapt, to grow stronger, to respond to the demands we place on it. Research on adults well into their 80s and 90s has consistently shown meaningful strength gains from simple, progressive movement, sometimes within just a matter of weeks. Your muscles do not know how old you are. They only know whether you're asking them to work. Ask them, gently and consistently, and they will answer. I think about another patient, a gentleman I'll call Frank, who came to me at 78 years old after a hospitalization for pneumonia had left him weak and unable to walk more than a few steps without stopping. His family was, frankly, preparing for the worst. They assumed this was simply the beginning of the end, the natural decline that comes with advanced age. But we started him, very slowly, very gently, with assisted sit-to-stand repetitions from a raised chair, sometimes with help from a family member steadying him. 2 repetitions the first day, 3 the next. It was slow. It was humbling for him, I could see that. But within 8 weeks, Frank was walking to his mailbox on his own. Within 4 months, he was attending his granddaughter's graduation, standing for photographs without a cane. His family didn't call it a miracle, though it certainly felt like one to them. I call it physiology. I call it the simple, profound truth that our bodies are built to respond to demand, no matter how many years they've been on this earth. I want you to think, right now, tonight, about what independence actually means to you. Maybe it's being able to travel and visit your grandchildren without worrying about navigating an airport alone. Maybe it's gardening, kneeling down among your flowers and standing back up without help. Maybe it's simply making it to the bathroom in the middle of the night without fear of falling. Maybe it's dancing at a wedding. Maybe it's just being able to get up off the floor after playing with a grandchild, laughing instead of grimacing. Whatever your vision of a vibrant, independent decade ahead looks like, I want you to understand that the muscles required to make that vision real are the very same muscles this simple exercise strengthens, day after day, repetition after repetition. I also want to talk about mindset, because strength is not only built in the muscles, it's built in the mind first. So many of my patients over 60 have absorbed a quiet, insidious belief that decline is simply what happens now, that fatigue and stiffness and slowness are just the price of admission for growing older. I want to gently challenge that belief tonight, because I have seen, with my own eyes, hundreds of times, that decline is not mandatory. It is common, yes, it is not inevitable. There is a profound difference between those two words. Common means many people experience it because many people are sedentary, under-muscled, and never taught what their bodies are actually capable of. Inevitable would mean there is nothing you can do about it, and that is simply scientifically not true. You have more control over the next 20 years of your physical life than almost any other factor in modern medicine can offer you. More than most medications, more than most supplements, more, frankly, than most doctor visits. This exercise puts that control directly, tangibly into your own hands, or rather, into your own legs. Now, I want to give you a simple, realistic way to build this into your life starting tomorrow morning, because information without action changes nothing. Here is what I tell my patients, and here is what I'm telling you. Choose one anchor point in your day, perhaps right after you brush your teeth in the morning, or right before you sit down for your morning coffee, or right when you get up from bed. Attach your sit-to-stand repetitions to that existing habit, so you don't have to rely on memory or motivation alone. Start with whatever number feels challenging but achievable, even if that's 3 repetitions. Perform them slowly, with control, breathing steadily, focusing on using your legs rather than your arms. Do this every day for 1 week. At the end of that week, add 1 or 2 more repetitions. Continue this gentle progression week after week. Within 2 to 3 months, most people find themselves comfortably performing 15 to 20 repetitions, sometimes in multiple sets throughout the day, often without needing the chair at all for support. If you want to deepen the benefit even further, once you're comfortable, you can begin adding small variations, pausing for a few seconds at the bottom of the movement to build even more strength, holding a light household object like a water bottle or a small book against your chest for added resistance, or slowing the descent down to a count of 3 or 4 seconds to increase the muscular work involved. But please hear me, these variations are optional extras. The foundational movement done consistently is where the transformation truly happens. Consistency will always outperform intensity, especially in this stage of life. I would always rather see a patient do 10, gentle, controlled repetitions every single day for a year, then 50 aggressive repetitions once, and then never again out of soreness or discouragement. I also want to briefly mention the emotional and cognitive side of this, because health is never just physical, is it? We now understand that physical movement, especially strength-based movement, has meaningful effects on mood, on cognitive clarity, and even on the risk of cognitive decline. The same muscles you're building through this exercise are connected, through complex neurological and hormonal pathways, to your brain health. Patients who commit to consistent movement routines like this often report better sleep, improved mood, sharper thinking, and a greater overall sense of purpose and vitality. This is not a coincidence. Your body was never designed to be static. It was designed to move, to work, to adapt, and when you honor that design, even in small daily doses, your entire system responds in ways that ripple far beyond just your leg muscles. I want to leave you with one more thought before I close tonight, and it's something I think about constantly in my practice. So many of the patients I've watched decline over the years didn't decline because of some unavoidable disease or unfortunate genetic hand they were dealt. They declined because nobody ever told them, clearly and urgently, what small, consistent action could have changed everything. They assumed weakness was just part of getting older. They assumed it was too late, or too complicated, or required equipment or expertise they didn't have. And by the time they realized otherwise, they had already lost precious time, precious strength, precious independence that could have been protected or even rebuilt with something as simple as standing up and sitting down with intention every single day. I refuse to let that be your story. That is why I stood here tonight and spoke to you as directly, as passionately as I possibly could. You do not need a gym membership. You do not need expensive equipment. You do not need to be young, flexible, or athletic. You need a sturdy chair, 5 minutes a day, and the willingness to begin gently, right where you are. Whether that's 3 repetitions or 30, whether you need to hold on to armrests for support or can already do this with your arms crossed over your chest, the point is not where you start. The point is that you start, and that you keep going, one day at a time, one repetition at a time, building back the strength that keeps you upright, mobile, confident, and free. Margaret still comes to see me for her regular checkups. She hikes again now, shorter trails than she used to, but real trails, real mountains, real sunshine on her face. Frank sends me a photograph every year from his granddaughter's birthday, standing proudly in every single one. These are not miracle stories. These are ordinary people who simply decided, with a little guidance, to ask their bodies to do a little more than they had been asking, one small movement at a time. And their bodies answered. So tonight, my prescription to every single one of you watching or listening, whether you are 60, 70, 80, or beyond, is simple. Tomorrow morning, find a sturdy chair. Sit at the edge of it. Stand up slowly, using your legs. Sit back down with control. Do this a few times. That's it. That's the beginning. Do it again the next day, and the day after that. Let this become as automatic and non-negotiable as anything else you do to care for yourself. Because the years ahead of you do not have to be years of decline. They can be years of strength, of independence, of standing tall, quite literally, in every sense of the word. I've spent my whole career trying to give people not just more years in their life, but more life in their years. And I believe, with everything I know and everything I've witnessed, that this one simple movement, practiced faithfully, is one of the most powerful tools any of us have to make that possible after 60. Take care of these legs. Take care of these muscles. They have carried you through decades already, and with just a little bit of daily attention, they are more than ready to carry you through many, many more. If tonight's message meant something to you, if you feel even a small spark of hope or motivation stirring after hearing this, I want to ask you for something simple in return. Please, hit that subscribe button so that more guidance like this can reach you regularly, because your health deserves consistent, trustworthy information, not just a single video that gets lost in the noise. And please, leave a comment below. Tell me where you're starting from, whether it's your first repetition tomorrow or your 50th day of practicing this. I read every single one, and I promise you, your story might be exactly what someone else scrolling by needs to see to finally begin their own. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight. Go stand up, sit back down, and let's build the strongest, most independent years of your life together, starting right now.